welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. I'll grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This episode we'll be going over the forums once again, and we'll be going over certain points in the PvP scene that essentially people have posted on there, and I'm going to be kind of dissecting them, going through them, what is a good idea, what's a bad idea. Some people might just be talking out of their arse, some people might just be actually coming up with good ideas, but it's very rare on the forums, I will say that much. So let's get straight into it with the weekly news. We have Strunran and the Zakali Elders as your weekly world bosses for the week. Strunran is located in Onaran? No, Waking Shore. Oh my god, I've completely forgotten. I believe it's Onaran Plains. Srikron is, Onaran Plains and the Zaralak Caverns. Skirmish is your bonus event, so essentially you get more honour for competing in these skirmishes. Classic Ashran is your brawl for this week. This is basically Ashran, the 40 versus 40 arena. Not arena, battleground, but essentially you have to kill the enemy boss in order to win, rather than there being a reinforcement, end game, essentially. Tyrannical, Incorporeal, and Spiteful are your mythic affixes this week. Tyrannical is that the boss and the mobs they spawn have increased health and damage. Incorporeal, you basically phase out and you need to be dispelled or something. I can't quite remember with Incorporeal. And Spiteful, when you kill a mob, a spiteful shade will appear from that mob and essentially chase and fixate someone down. You want to be either kiting these or just rooting them, killing them off very quickly. They will die eventually of their own accord. The weapon that we're going to be looking at this week is a weapon that we've kind of gone over in the past, but we're going to be looking at its counterpart, and that is the Corrupted Ashbringer. So we've obviously gone over the Ashbringer before. The Corrupted one is the one that you can loot in-game back in classic World of Warcraft. So this was a very unique weapon, as it was the very first weapon that had minus stats. It actually took away 25 stamina when you wielded it, but it gave you a load of other things such as crit chance, hit chance, and a chance to steal life from the opposition. So the Corrupted Ashbringer is an epic two-handed sword from Naxxramas before patch 3.0. Death Knight and former High Lord Alexandros Mograine could be seen wielding the Corrupted Ashbringer in the original Naxxramas raid. It was once obviously the Ashbringer, but became corrupted when Mograine's son Renault Mograine used it to kill him. It is unique in that it triggers scripted events within the Scarlet Monastery. This can be a massive RP event, and whispers from Alexandros can be heard by the wielder, which is really, really cool. In Wrath of the Lich King, Corrupted Ashbringer is wielded by Alexandros' son, Darian Mograine, until Tyrion Fordring purified it at the Battle of Light's Hope Chapel at the end of the Death Knight chain, essentially. Equipping the Ashbringer, the Corrupted Ashbringer, will buff the player with the Will of the Ashbringer, which makes Argent Dawn NPCs hostile, Scarlet Crusade NPCs friendly, and makes the player appear slightly darker. Furthermore, it enables a proc for the deceased High Lord Mograine to whisper one of 12 sayings to the wielder. These are the 12 sayings. All of these are obviously a little bit slowed down, but I'm not going to do it at that rate because it would take me quite a long time. I was pure once, fought for righteousness. I was once called Ashbringer, betrayed by my order, destroyed by Kel'Thuzad being the final boss in Naxxramas, made to serve. My son watched me die. Crusaders fed his rage. Truth is unknown to him. Scarlet Crusade is pure no longer. Balnazar's Crusade corrupted my son, and kill them all. All of these can be said when wielding the Corrupted Ashbringer, and it's really kind of eerie. If you ever think about a voice in your head and someone's kind of, I don't know, whispering over your shoulder, in your ear, it's kind of that. It's really faint and you can hear it in the back of your mind kind of deal. The Scarlet Monastery event is essentially every single Scarlet Monastery person kind of kneels before you, and when you go up to Renault Mograine, as he is the final boss of the instance, the spirit of High Lord Mograine, who was the Ashbringer, appears in like full tier 3 gear essentially, and kills his son. That's it. That's the RP. You can also go to Inquisitor Fairbanks, who's hidden in a secret room in Scarlet Monastery, and essentially you can bring his spirit back because he isn't undead, and you can bring his spirit back and he will transform back into a human. And he tells you about someone who may be able to purify it, which is his son, which we only knew that he was in Outland, and a lot of people tried to find him in Outland, but to no avail until obviously Darian in Wrath of the Lich King came along and was like, yo, I'm the second son, that kind of deal. This sparked a lot of sort of hunting, essentially, for a way to corrupt or to purify the Ashbringer, as it was in the game. The Ashbringer, it was actually in the the files or the data of the game. So people thought that you could acquire it, which is fair enough. So people did absolutely everything in order to try and obtain this. It is no longer available, very sadly. And it was only available for about 2 years. It was only available between 2006 and 2008, and literally there's not that much time at all between it all. But before we go into the main part of this episode, I do want to thank you and say a massive thank you once again to everyone who tunes in every week. It is constantly growing, the show, and I feel so privileged to just give you this sort of platform to listen and enjoy your time. I must ask for your support a little bit more. As you well know, the podcast is not a full-time job, and I do put in as much effort as I can into it without having any sort of content behind a paywall. With all of this said, down below is a link to support the show from as little as $3 a month. Times are tough at the moment, and I really do know this, but anything that you can give to the show, that little bit extra, will help massively. It'll get more episodes out. It'll mean that I can focus on this a lot more, put a lot more into it for you guys. But that is all, and let's get straight into the rest of this episode. So we have a couple of forum posts. There's one massive one and there's a smaller one. I'll start off with the smaller one, obviously. Both of them are related to PvP, and I'm going to be kind of nitpicking them and going through all of them, or both of them, to see either how stupid they are or how decently they're actually put together. So the first one is titled, "How do you find arena partners?" So, like the title says, how do you guys find people willing to push for rating with you? I'm a returning player, haven't played since Kata, basically, and it seems more than I can remember it being before that gearing up. Catching up to Conquest gear is slow and daunting. Okay, firstly, it can be a bit daunting if you're returning as a Cataclysm from Cataclysm, but the thing is, gearing-wise, it's never been as good as it has been in Dragonflight, in my opinion. So, yes, you might be a bit behind with Conquest, but the thing is, the way that you get honor gear is very quick. You can buy gear off of the auction house, which is the same item level as the previous season's Conquest gear. So, you will never not be more than a season behind. Honor gear is very cheap. You do not need to upgrade it like you did in Shadowlands. The Conquest can be a bit of a drag to get, I will say that, and there are obviously pieces that you can get crafted which will help you, such as precognition. There's one that every time you CC, you get more of your stats. So there's multiple things that you can sort of craft as well, which do cost Conquest because you need a certain badge for it, almost. I'm going to call it a badge. You guys know what I mean. You need a certain thing, reagent for it. But I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. Shadowlands left a very poor taste in a lot of people's mouths because of how poorly the gearing system was. Essentially, in Shadowlands, if you can't remember, you bought a piece of gear and you would have to upgrade this gear to get it to its full potential. You had to upgrade it 9 times. So one piece of gear cost about 700 honor, we'll say. This is like chest piece, chest piece, which is like 900 honor, something like that. To upgrade this fully, it costs you about 10,000 honor. I think that's a little bit over the top, actually. It'll be more like 8,000, I think, something around that range. Weapons were like 12,500. And to put this into perspective, the cap for honor was 15k. So you're getting one piece of gear for nearly the entire cap of your like honor. And the thing is, conquest gear, you could only level it up if you hit a certain bracket. So if you were to go up to 2k rating and you're pushing and you're at 1950 and you're playing a team that have hit 2k rating before, and they've upgraded their gear, you're actively at a disadvantage because their gear is just better because they've already been that rating and upgraded their gear. And in Dragonflight, everyone's gear is actually like the same, pretty much. It's very simple to get gear. So I can see why it might be a bit daunting, but honestly, it is as good as it ever will be because you can't just give everyone the best gear. Like when the new season starts, there's got to be always that sort of progression as you're going through for the ones that do carry on playing constantly. You go in with full honor gear, even upgraded, and you get clapped. In my experience, I don't know what to say to this guy. He's playing a monk. Monks right now are one of the tankiest classes. You have Dampen Harm, Karma, Port, Fort Brew. You have loads of mobility. You have your own self-heals. I don't really know what to say about that. Playing as Devastation Evoker currently, and you can just tell I'm undergeared, and no matter how I try to play, I just end up flopping in stuns. Okay, if he's playing as Devastation, I can kind of understand it a bit more. Devastation, in my opinion, on a bit on the weekend. It doesn't feel fleshed out, Devastation. The defensives that you have are really good. Renewing Blaze, your 2 walls, you have decent mobility, you have your rescue, multiple stuff like that. But it's kind of a damage bot. If you can't one-shot anything, you're not going to do much, and that's the sad thing about it. I'm not going to say the server. If it matters, if anyone wants to run some games, I have 0 rated arena MMR currently, just done a few solo shuffles. Okay, so I think this guy's post, he never actually referred to it, but essentially the best thing that you have at the moment for looking for arena partners is looking for group. And you obviously have Discord servers, but it's about going out and actively finding these Discord servers to find people to play. Even then, a lot of people just have a team already, and they don't really want to find random people. It's very rare that people want to just find other people, like 2 other randomers, and just try and push. It's probably happened in the past, and there's probably teams out there that have done that, which is amazing, by the way, which is absolutely amazing. But let's take it to in-game, more than anything. In-game, we have looking for group. This is not helpful at all. You can post on there, like looking for long-term partners and stuff. Me and, my elemental shaman partner, looking for a healer for the long push. We're looking at this sort of rating. We have this much experience, all that stuff. And then you can go through it, talk to people and stuff like that, which is fine. But looking for group, being kind of the main way to do it in World of Warcraft, isn't the best because you get people who join, play 2 games, they lose 1, win 1, and the second game that they play is a loss, so they leave. And that's not fun. That's not an enjoyable experience for anyone, and it shouldn't be. To kind of answer the question, I think the best way to find arena partners is through Discords. You've actively got to look for them. There's a couple that I joined back in Shadowlands when I was looking to push. I got a couple messages from people and stuff, but by the time I got the messages, I was playing with team and stuff already. So they are out there. The Discords are the ones that I would suggest. Rather than looking for group, just type in like WoW PvP Discords, something like that, and I'm sure you'll find them. But yeah, it's not great if you want to look for people long-term in-game, because it's the likelihood of you finding that is relatively low compared to say, one of the discords that you find out and about, just Googling them, essentially. The second one is a very long one. So the title of it is Solo Shuffle and the Healer Problem. This is a long one. So I'm going to give... oh my god, this is really long. Okay, I'll try and go through it and skim it as quickly as I can. Before I dive in, I'm going to say a bunch of shit that people who actually enjoy healing will not agree with. I'm going to be stating things from the perspective of an average person, which may not align with you, and that is okay. I myself share a ton of opinions that people in general do not agree with. So please do not be offended when I say what I say. That's amazing. Firstly, that's a brilliant starting paragraph. Healing is not fun for the average person. Healing is not fun for the vast majority of players. That doesn't mean you MR Mr. Healer main, since Mummy shat me out during Vanilla and Mana still existed. But you are an outlier, and I have nothing against you, and may relate to you because I mained Resto Druid before or during BFA and Shadowlands. Oh, that's really rough. Solo Shuffle queue times support is claim? Harm? Solo Shuffle queue times support this claim. Okay. My brain just blew up there. Healer vs DPS queue times in Overwatch support this. Looking for group has a healer versus looking for group as a DPS in both PvP and PvE support this. Healing in WoW Arena is essentially playing a goalkeeper. If the goal was actually attached to every player on your team, moved with them, and you're allowed to trip the other goalie as well. People like playing goalie, but in every sport there's maybe one goalie per 5 to 10 players on the field. Being a goalie is psychologically difficult. Google sports psychological goalie, yeah, all of that, and see how much research and focus it is on the psychological and mental fortitude of goalies. Okay, firstly, I can kind of understand it, but at the same time, you're dealing with a bigger pool here of people. I kind of get the reference of 1 in every 10 people, and I think that's a fair thing to say, I guess. Look, healing's one of them things, you either love it or you hate it. It's very rare that you can kind of love it and hate it at the same time. I guess it's not actually. I think a lot of healer mains will say that you can love it and hate it at the same time. So, in my personal experience, I love logging onto my monk healer. I absolutely love it. I play my Boomy, and my Boomy I find very stressful in games because I'm really trying, whereas the monk healer is actually what I use to wind down, even though I'm healing. Those healer mains who grind shuffle must be thinking I'm absolutely crazy, but hear me out. Essentially, the healer is something that I don't necessarily care about. It's something that means that I can practice other things. I'm healing, sure, but I can hone my senses in stuff where it's okay, he's in danger, I need to press something before I get CC'd, that kind of deal. Or the priest is looking to come and CC me because I can see that out my peripheral. How am I going to deal with this? I'll jump down, TP up, roll away, CC him first, many different things. And I think that you kind of always need, if you are a player who gets really annoyed at solo shuffle, find a class where you can just chill. Do not care about your rating, because ultimately solo shuffle rating doesn't mean much, in my honest opinion. It's nice to see, but 3v3s are still where the main sort of ratings should be looked at more than anything. I don't want to hear all these people who claim oh my god, I got 3,200 in solo shuffle, but you're 1,500 in threes. Yeah, alright, it's a completely different game. You actively don't work with a team, it seems, that kind of deal. What you have to do is find a class that you can queue up and just chill on. You don't care if you win 6 rounds or lose 6 rounds. You are very mellow during the entire thing. Be competitive, obviously. Like myself, I'm very competitive, but you just need to be a little bit more mellow with it, and it's more. You will see what I mean. You need this because you obviously have someone that you're pushing on solo shuffle. For me, it's my Boomy, and this is my sort of, calming like character almost. It's like, yeah, I'll log on, and because it's a healer, I go from a DPS to a healer. I get instant queues, and I just like arenas. So I just play because I find it fun, and because the queues aren't that long. It's one of them things. Let's see, where was I? Why is that? Think about it. A goalie is actively participating in every loss condition on your team, but they are almost never involved in a victory condition. I kind of understand that, but there are certain plays that healers can make. If you're on one of the stronger healers, such as Holy Paladin, you can Hodge, Rep, you can do multiple things. There is potential to help, but he is correct. There are less victory conditions than there are loss conditions. For healers, anyway. In WoW, even if you scored a game-winning CC on the enemy healer, it is ultimately not you scoring the final kill most of the time because healers lack the punch to do a quick burst of DPS combo to take opportunities of moments of calm. I think I'm going to disagree with that. Towards the higher end, it's more just being able to get the globals to do the damage. Because you have dragons that can do fire breath. You have paladins that even with their denounce actually does a fair bit of damage. You have holy priest right now with holy fire death. This priest is kind of on the lower end, which is really sad right now. But even then, you can maybe do like a smite and the shadow word death. All that stuff. It's more finding the globals to do them damaging abilities. However, as a healer, every time your team lost, someone on your team died, which is your job to prevent because you're the only class that can take health bars from low back to high. Not necessarily true, it's your job. The game works as a team-based game. Obviously, everyone has their own defensives, everyone has their own ways of surviving and healing up. If you're like a warlock, you can drain life potentially, but I kind of get what he means, but it is not your job to prevent them from dying. It's your job to support them in not dying, but they need to help themselves as well. This isn't all on the healers, by no means at all. Human psychology is dumb when it comes to processing rewards. The less of a mental leap you have to make about how you won, the easier it is to make you feel good about something you've done. It's a lot easier to feel a rush of dopamine when it's your full moon that scores the last 50% of someone's health while the enemy healer was CC'd, whereas it actually takes game sense to realise that your CC was the other player died. Kind of makes sense, but I think a lot of people would understand, especially those who play in setup comps, would understand that it is all about the CC. When you play with consistent teams, some of these downsides are negated since you and your teammates build similar consistent patterns that you can read off of each other, and making connections of how you contributed to victory is a lot easier. That's basically what I said. Yeah, it makes sense because if you play in a CC comp, everyone's doing their part to CC the healer, CC the DPS, and everything behind that, and it's a team-based game. The math behind healer rating is I'm not too sure what this meant to say. I'm gonna go with fucked. To understand this, you have to think about how MMR works when comparing multiple players. I'm making an assumption with how this works. Making some assumptions on how this works, but I cannot imagine it working in any other way than Blizzard allowing such a large MMR discrepancy between healers and DPS in a single match. I think he's going to go on and talk about... Yeah. Okay. Imagine 4 players at the following MMRs, 1200, 1300, this establishes a spectrum of performances that allows you to figure out how good a player is based on their performance relative to the players in the match. Imagine the 1200 player did better than both the 1300 and the 1400 player, but worse than the 1500 player. In that match, this means that the 1200 player probably somewhere between 1300 and 1400. as a result of that match. However, if they did only better than the 1300 player, it means that they could be between that sort of range. Now imagine two players at the following MMRs, one's at 1200, one at 15. The only three possible outcomes are the 1200 beats the 1400, the opposite, or a draw. If the 1200 player beats the 1400 player, 1400 player is technically considered 1200 MMR now, and the 1200 player is considered 1400. I'm not sure that's how it works. If the 1400 player beats the 1200 player, what did we learn? We learned that what we already knew, there are different skill levels, and the losses can be adjusted by just how badly the 1400 player won. If they tie, the 1400 player loses MMR, and the 1200 player gains MMR to bring them closer together in the middle. Okay. What this all comes down to, in fact, is that the DPS players, you have three other players to compare yourself to. Your ride is much smoother than a healer because at every match, even one of the players outclasses you completely. I guess he misspelled that. Outclasses you. You have two other players to compare yourself to. So there are far more possible outcomes from that match. Every time you go 6-0, you tell the game that you are just that much better than the other three players in the lobby. It's statistically significant because for the game, you didn't just outplay one player, you outplayed all three players, other contenders. And I'm guessing he's going to go on and say, okay, yeah. He goes on and says, like, about the healer problem, because he's saying that there's 4 DPS, so you've got 3 people to compare your MMR to, whereas healers, you've only got 2. Essentially, the 2 healers, one of them is always a tiny bit lower or a tiny bit higher than the other. Sometimes it can be 100 MMR, sometimes it can be 10 MMR, but essentially one will be higher than the other. It'll be very rare that you get an exact, same MMR, essentially. What he's saying is, which kind of has shown in the past couple weeks, I've been watching a lot of WoW streamers at the moment, healers mainly, and essentially when one goes 5-1, like he actively wins 5 rounds and loses 1, he has lost MMR. So it was actually a screenshot on Twitter. Someone won 5 rounds and lost 1 and lost MMR, lost rating, because the healer that he was against was so much lower than him that winning that 1 round meant that he got dragged so far down and the healer got a little bit extra, essentially. And that should never be the case. That should never be the case. If you go 3-3, I can understand you not moving. If you go 4, if you go positive, you should go up MMR, regardless of the other healer's MMR, in my opinion, because you still need to earn the wins. The healer's no scrub, by all means, unless you're playing at 500 rating, but I'm pretty sure that's impossible. I wonder if you could do something where, a healer challenge where you turn your monitor off. I swear, I feel like, some players do play like that in Solo Shuffle. Quick detour, I was playing Solo Shuffle earlier on my monk. I was having fun. I had the paladin. I topped him to full, and 5 seconds later, he's still full health. He proceeds to bubble. No one on their team's nearly dead. He just bubbles. Might have been a fat finger. Who knows? We lose that round. We actually lose that round, and it was so close that round, it was kind of annoying. And then we go into the final round, and I have the paladin again. Essentially, he dies in 10 seconds without pressing a cooldown. He didn't press anything, he didn't bubble. I was in CC, so I'm not going to be the one to trinket first. He has many different ways to essentially save himself: Shield of Vengeance, bop, bubble, lay on hands, even just healing himself, that kind of deal. But he didn't, and it's the complete opposite. So it's quite funny to see. I'm not going to lie, it was something funny. I've seen warriors leap in first global, charge behind a pillar, so I'm having to catch up. which is quite funny as well. This all happened like yesterday on stream, so go check out the stream, by the way. It's down below. Quick plug there, just saying that. But yeah, it's quite funny. It is quite funny. But yeah, essentially what this guy is saying is you're fucked either way, because if you get into a lobby where the healer is lower MMR than you have to like 5-1 or 6-0 the lobby. Whereas if you get into one where the healer is higher than you can go negative, you can go 2 and 4 and go up MMR. And that should never be the case. If you're the same MMR, no matter what game you get in, if you draw, get a 3 and 3, you stay the same. If you go positive, you should get MMR. If you go negative, you should lose MMR, regardless of the rating of the other. Obviously, if there's a massive difference, it can kind of make sense. But if you're within 100, I would say that it's fair enough to just do it that sort of way, because otherwise it's unfair on the guy who's higher rated. Way more unfair. That should never just be the case in any circumstance. So I can kind of understand what this guy's saying. He's made some decent points. Ultimately, you've got weirder games at the moment in Solo Shuffle because there's a shortage of healers. You're getting 2k healers put into 1,500 lobbies, and you're getting 2k healers put into 2,400 lobbies. I got put into a lobby which literally has an AWC player in it. I'm a DPS main. I'm at 2k on my monk. I am not a healer main at all. And I got put with someone who was in AWC. And it's oh, great. Yeah, that's something. That's amazing. I ended up going 1 and 5 in that lobby. It was a good lobby. It was a fun lobby. But yeah, I kind of knew I shouldn't have been there. I felt like I shouldn't have been there. But I still did my best, and I did decently, I think. I fed a couple times, but, it is what it is. But yeah, the reason that the MMR's kind of fucked at the moment is because of the shortages of healers. And these healers have to be spread around all over the place. So hence why 2k healers get into a 2,400 lobby, and 2k healers can also get into a 1,500 lobby, because otherwise you'd be waiting a excessive more amount of time, DPS will be anyway, for healers specific to your rating. Because if you have 10 healers at 2k and you've got 2 healers at 2.4, but you've got 500 DPS at 2.4 and 2,000 at 2k, it's going to take a while for the healers to get through all of the DPS in the queue. Whereas if you've got 500 healers and 1,000 DPS at 1,500, you can get all of the 1,500 DPS out of the way immediately with all of these healers, essentially. And then you can throw the healers into other lobbies to see how they fare, see how other people play around them, stuff like that. But yeah, it's a weird one, Solo Shuffle at the moment. It's hopefully they'll look at it and it will get better for healers, because they need to give sort of a carrot on a stick for healers, a lot more so than just the Conquest. The Conquest is a very good start, though. Hence why I do it on my monk, because it's actually really good, the Conquest badges. But that is it for this episode. Thank you all very much for listening, as always. If you want to check out the Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, it's all down below. And to support the channel, it is down below as well in the description. Thank you all very much for listening once again, and go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.